Now out in cinemas is the latest Spider-Man movie titled Brand New Day, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who had directed the movie Shang-Chi and the TV series Wonder Man. Produced for $225 million, it has already made $927 million over the past weekend, making it the second highest global opening after Avengers Endgame, showing no signs that people are burnt out on the superhero genre. The film was made in the UK, making use of Pinewood Studios. That was the home for many successful superhero films over the past 4 decades. They shot on the streets of Glasgow to replicate New York, and had a second unit team capture material from the city stateside to comp into backgrounds, but the majority of the film was UK based. Since the release of No Way Home, Tom Holland was aware of fan sentiment on the internet for the future of the series, and tried to get a really good sense of what people wanted for the next Spider-Man film, knowing fans wanted something that was relatable, where Spider-Man was not saving the world, but focused on maybe saving himself. Kevin Feige said the ending of No Way Home was a promise to audiences that they would see Tom Holland as a proper Spider-Man for the first time in the MCU, highlighting that Brand New Day focuses on the character's classic elements from the comics, with fighting crime on the streets of New York, rather than dealing with world-ending events, as seen in the previous appearances in the franchise. The story would introduce the Punisher, who had his own TV series, but never made it into the new MCU films, as he was an R-rated character, which made it difficult to incorporate him, with Tom Holland saying it was a challenge to incorporate an R-rated character like the Punisher, and stated that the production team worked to ensure that the character's portrayal was authentic to the Frank Castle fans know, and they thought of fun ways to get around the profanity and violence associated with him. The press have all been pretty positive towards Brand New Day, with the Telegraph's Robbie Collin calling it the best Spider-Man film since the Tobey Maguire era, and praised the relationship between Holland and Zendaya, who creates a real yearning and perplexity that we have not seen previously in the dynamic between their characters. Empire magazine awarded the film 4 stars, declaring the web-slinging hero is still Marvel's ace in the pack. However, some critics raised a few complaints, with The Guardian declaring that Zendaya saves this film from silliness and the generic deja vu over-familiarity that is always threatening to sink in. And The Hollywood Reporter wrote that the film chugs along satisfyingly, even with the occasional patch of sluggishness and the usual overly convoluted plot contortions. For the film's story, Peter Parker is struggling to deal with the fallout of Doctor Strange's spell that made everyone forget that he existed. He has continued fighting crime across New York, and the crime rate has fallen, making the city the safest it's ever been. But Peter is lonely and is struggling mentally, and he begins to develop headaches as he discovers his mutant powers are beginning to evolve. During a high-speed chase across the city and bumping into the Punisher, who's trying to stop it as well in his usual aggressive way, he encounters a telepath who is behind it all, but it becomes difficult to track them down as they jump from one body to another. Peter consults with Bruce Banner to help suppress his powers as they are getting out of hand, and in the meantime the new enemy has been looking into Peter's past and his connection to MJ and threatens to kill her. When it comes to Spider-Man, you know going in, you're going to be delivered an entertaining film. All of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films have been really enjoyable. You can nitpick parts to them, but they all deliver great comedy, solid visual effects and action sequences, and the stories for the most part are a lot of fun, and Brand New Day continues that trend. What surprised me from the get-go was the aspect ratio, as the trailers showed the film in the scope format of 2:3:5:1, but the film is projected in the 1:85 or say 1:90 aspect ratio, making it the second Spider-Man film to do that. The first film with Tobey Maguire was in that format, as it was Sam Raimi's usual style. The change in the format works extremely well in the film's favour. The POV shots of Spider-Man swinging through the city really gives you that sense of gravity and a bit of vertigo. There is a change in the film's visual style and use of colours compared to the previous entries, which all took on that traditional Marvel look, a bit washed out and flat, appearing too digital for my liking. This has more earthy colour tones, stronger contrast with deep blacks, so when Spider-Man appears, he just pops off the screen with his colourful outfit. For me, this is the best looking Spider-Man film to date. As with each new Spidey movie, they always make adjustments to the suit, and for Brand New Day they go back to basics, which I really appreciated. It honestly reminded me of the late 70s Spider-Man show. If they gave him a utility belt, then it would be the classic Spider-Man of my youth. That's the beauty of Spider-Man. If you keep his suit simple, then it works a treat. That's the same for Superman. Don't overcomplicate or engineer the suit so it looks too busy. Just bold colours and spandex. That's what you need. The film, I believe, gives the fans what they wanted. A Spider-Man film centred around New York, and with him dealing with smaller events. Nothing big in its scale, it's focused on one place and is all about Peter and his problems, as we see him struggle with his powers and wanting MJ and Ned back in his life, but fails to pluck up the courage to introduce himself as Peter, using a different name and speaking to them only sparingly at first. It was nice to see the Punisher finally make his way into the Marvel films. Instead of being sidelined into a TV show, I can understand why they did that originally, due to the violence that is inherent with his character. With Brand New Day, they do a really good job of letting him be himself without the swearing and shooting people. Frank's interactions with Spider-Man provide the film with some of the funniest moments. They just end up bickering like an old couple, and it has shades of a buddy cop film as they butt heads on their way of dealing with crime. I'm not going to reveal who the main antagonist is, but with the body hopping as they jump from one mine to another, it reminded me of the schlock thriller from 1998 with Denzel Washington called Fallen, which has the devil body jumping around as Denzel struggles to track them down. It's all very silly, and when I saw it in Spider-Man, I couldn't help but laugh, as visually it has to be heavily telegraphed so the audience and Spider-Man can figure out who's who. To me, it comes across as a bit too goofy. When it comes to dealing with Peter's evolving powers as he matures, they keep it simple. So he develops organic webs like in the Tobey Maguire series, he becomes stronger and his spidey sense is enhanced. All straightforward as he struggles to cope with it and tries to suppress it. But they don't go too deep with it. I was hoping he was going to have some nightmares as he fears he will turn into a spider. I'm sure something like this happened in the 90s cartoon show, but I suppose if they went that route, it would have turned into this crazy body horror moment that would have been too much for the kids. One thing they don't address in the story is how Peter makes any money. Was he left money by Aunt May? Is he still burning through a student loan? Did Tony Stark leave him some assets? He has all this technology in his apartment, how did he afford that? He doesn't become a photographer for the Daily Bugle. That idea appears to have been dropped early on for Tom Holland's interpretation of the character, so that was left unexplained. The visual effects were pretty impressive throughout. They do a really good job of doubling Glasgow for New York. You can tell in some scenes that it's clearly the United Kingdom, thanks to the grey overcast weather, which actually suits the tone of the film, but it's not as obvious as Milton Keynes doubling for New York in Superman 4. There were maybe a couple of FX shots that needed a bit more work on them, but these glaring shots are fleeting, and overall the FX team did a good job along with the stunt performers and second unit team for the action sequences, which were pretty exciting to watch. When it comes to the score composed by Michael Giacchino, I wasn't that impressed sadly. Michael is a great composer. He doesn't do the Hans Zimmer style with his approach to writing, he goes full on big orchestra, the traditional way of film composing, which I love. But there wasn't much in the score that stood out. I didn't walk out of the cinema with any big themes that I recall, or hear any action cues that stuck with me. Most of the score sounded like it got lost in the sound mix, as the sound effects were favoured over the score. The one part of the soundtrack I enjoyed was this synthy track, which on the album is called Suit New Day, which reminded me of Tangerine Dream from the early 80s that worked really well. I think the score works best with the emotional moments with Peter feeling lost and desperate to rekindle his friendship with MJ, but Michael's main theme for Spider-Man hasn't really done much for me since he started composing for the Spider-Man series. For me, my favourite Spider-Man theme for all the movies that have been made is the late James Horner's work on The Amazing Spider-Man. Now that's a proper superhero theme tune. The Tom Holland Spider-Man series has been consistently good, which is difficult to do. As we've seen so many times over the years with the superhero genre and their endless sequels, that often come the third or the fourth in the series, things begin to fall apart big time. But with Spider-Man, it has broken that trend. So you have to commend the creatives behind the series that have managed to continue producing solid scripts. I think Spider-Man is very relatable and extremely likeable, and Tom Holland really encapsulates the strengths of the comic book character. It's hard now to think of anyone else who could do a better job. With Tom being a big fan of Spider-Man since he was a kid, he gives it his all and does a brilliant job with all the emotional beats of the film. He holds the film together. But saying that, it doesn't take away any of the other great performances from the supporting players, who all do a fantastic job. The film does have a slight issue with its pacing in places, and I wish they explored more of the evolving powers, but these are nitpicking issues that don't detract from the overall quality of the film. As it's made a shit ton of money already, people love Spider-Man and people seem to really enjoy this new entry in the series, so I highly recommend it and I look forward to watching it again. For the most part, it hits all the right beats, provides a decent amount of comedy, drama and action. It takes all the right components of what makes a great superhero film, and despite in recent years many superhero films failing to impress the fans, and many believing audiences are burnt out on the genre, or perhaps that Marvel had run out of ideas, that is not the case, as Brand New Day demonstrates there is still a lot of life left in the genre. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click the like button and hit the bell to be notified of my latest reviews. Big thanks to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. If you want to get involved and gain access to exclusive videos and take part in Q&As, follow the link below.